Listen to Splatterhouse.
Yes, Splatterhouse, a Namco arcade classic from 1988 whose horrifying themes may be inappropriate for young children and cowards. Splatterhouse is a side-scrolling beat-em-up where you play as Rick Taylor, a parapsychology major who escaped to the West Mansion from a thunderstorm with his girlfriend Jennifer. Jennifer gets taken hostage by the Lovecraftian horrors who dwell there, who leave Rick for dead. Soon, Rick is beckoned by the Terror Mask.
That in no way, shape, or form resembles any popular movie franchises or characters of the time, so don't even think of sending in a cease and desist.
The mask revitalizes Rick and grants him superhuman strength to forge ahead and rescue Jennifer. Spoiler, she doesn't make it.
Hey yo, what the f?
Look pal, it's been 30 years. If you think that's annoying, get a load of this.
I am your father.
You are not the father.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the gameplay. Splatterhouse is a very simple game with somewhat limited mechanics. The D-pad makes you walk and crouch, button 2 punches or kicks, and button 1 jumps. You can do a sliding kick across the ground by hitting forward plus attack at the moment you land, but I can never get the precise timing down to make it work on purpose. The environments in Splatterhouse are a little bit plain, losing a lot of the bloody details from the arcade original. Still, they definitely have the feel of a house where a mad scientist experiments have run amok. Chained ghouls throw up poisonous vomit at you. Zombified hounds will pass up an opportunity to attack to feast on their fallen comrades. And you can bash rotten corpses dangling from the ceiling like they were bloated meat piñatas. Or defenseless old ladies. There are also various weapons that appear for Rick to pick up that add some variety to the gameplay. The 2x4 is probably the most satisfying to use since you can splatter
He said it!
baddies against the back wall. There is also the golden meat cleaver that only appears for the boss fight on stage 4 and is actually a palette swap of the first weapon you pick up in the arcade version. The wrench, rock, and spear are good for single-use ranged attacks, but the most powerful weapon is the shotgun on stage 3. There are 2 of these to pick up in the entire game, and you'll definitely want to conserve your ammunition by doing the shotgun shuffle, a technique where you pick up the next shotgun by dropping the previous one, kicking enemies when you can, and only shooting when it's absolutely necessary until you reach the boss. Speaking of bosses, for a game with relatively unimaginative gameplay, it has some pretty creative boss fights. The boss of stage 3 is Biggie Man, who has chainsaw blades for hands and is way easier to kill if you can pull off the aforementioned shotgun shuffle. There's stage 1's flesh-eating boar worms, a franchise mainstay, and my personal favorite, stage 2's haunted room, where a poltergeist has haunted the furniture and throws knives and other assorted objects at Rick. There are also a few alternate paths in certain stages where the difficulty is ramped up as a punishment for missing a jump, getting knocked down a hole, or being grabbed by an evil specter. These segments are pretty easy to avoid, but really difficult to get through if you fall into one, especially the Necromancer sequence. There are a lot of notable changes between the arcade, PC Engine, and TurboGrafx-16 versions as well, but that's not why you tuned in.
Here comes a new challenger!
Splatterhouse Chrome is the first known ROM hack for Splatterhouse, and I hate it.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Okay, maybe that's not fair. Perhaps I'm just used to the nice, even pace of the original with one-hit kills on most enemies and limited platforming, because this game is hard. Stupid hard. The original PC Engine and TurboGrafx-16 ports of Splatterhouse had a nice, even difficulty curve that eased you in. However, Chrome assumes you've been here before. It gets straight to business. The first thing you'll notice is that Rick is wearing the terror mask from the original Japanese version, and the whole Stage 1 layout has been changed to include some platforming and an alternate path. The gore factor has also been ramped up, with the original arcade cleaver making a return to Stage 1. A delightful spurt of blood now erupts from your victims when you hack their heads off, which is fabulous. But I don't mean to gush. Enemies that previously took 1 to 2 hits to defeat now take 2 to 4 hits, and there are a lot more of them, with baddies leaping all over the screen erratically. Other details have been added, such as enemies walking around the background and foreground to confound you. Hunks of gore are now stuck to the spikes, and they skipped Stage 2's intro for some reason, and you just go from 1 to 3 with no boss in between. Oh, and remember that sidekick maneuver I mentioned? The one that's like impossible to do on purpose? Well, you have to do it on Stage 3 to avoid the newly introduced suspended spinning blades. This is basically as far as I've gotten, but I can tell from the attract mode there's other cool stuff going on. Wow, that is awesome. So, what do I think? The original Splatterhouse is a classic for anyone who's interested in the origins of horror games and beat-em-ups in general. It's a little bit basic as far as mechanics and graphics go, but it's always been a game that relied more on spectacle than anything else, which is why it's left a very distinctive mark on the history of video games. I give Splatterhouse on the TurboGrafx 16 and PC Engine 8 satisfyingly splattered monsters out of 10. As for Splatterhouse Chrome, the best thing it has going for it is that it's more classic Splatterhouse, and a greater challenge for folks who want a game that's more on par with the punishing games of its time, such as Ninja Gaiden or Contra. That's why I'm giving Splatterhouse Chrome 6 cheap bullshit deaths out of 10. So yes, I would highly recommend playing through the original and then giving Chrome a try if you decide you want something a little bit more challenging. Today, we're going
Back to the mansion.
because I'm reviewing Splatterhouse 2, or as I like to call it, Splatterhouse 2.
Move this man!
Rick leaves the arcade and stars in this Mega Drive/Genesis exclusive, developed by Now Production and published by Namco in 1992.
That's boring. You're boring, everybody. Quit boring, everyone.
All right, let's get into it. The story of Splatterhouse 2 picks up 3 months after the events of Splatterhouse. A guilt-stricken Rick has nightmares of Jennifer hearing familiar voices in his sleep that turn out to be the reformed Terror Mask, promising that he can help rescue Jennifer from...
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
Speaking of the mask, there has always been an air of controversy surrounding the, similarities to a certain horror movie franchise.
I see all your movies, man. And you know what I've really noticed? You're angry.
The website, The West Mansion, actually got to the bottom of it when they interviewed the original Namco designer, Takashi Oda.
Here comes a new challenger!
My name is Takashi Oda, and this is how I talk. Ah! I was instructed to draw a brawny man in a hockey mask. Therefore, I thought it was a Voorhees game, so I drew it. One morning, I was told that it was not good to look too much like Voorhees. That's when I knew it wasn't licensed. Ah!
When Namco brought the first Splatterhouse stateside, they made the mask red and added some flair to help eliminate any confusion and potential legal trouble. This time around, the mask has undergone a complete redesign to help avoid those issues. The original Japanese version had a real kabuki theater look to it. So we got this goofball skull mask for the American release. But, if you watched my last Splatterhouse review, you know how fans get when they see something they don't like. That's why ROMhacking.net user Fusaru released a classic mask hack in April of 2016, which gives Rick back his Jason Couture look. Presentation-wise, this is Splatterhouse. Corpses swing from nooses strung from long-dead trees. There are supernatural themes and unidentifiable puddles of, stuff throughout. And everything has a glossy, sticky, and otherwise unpleasant sheen, which is actually really impressive for a Genesis game. If the original Splatterhouse channeled H.P. Lovecraft's Reanimator, down to the name of the doctor being West,
You'll never get credit for my discovery. Who's going to believe a talking head get a job in a sideshow?
then Splatterhouse 2 draws its influence from his more cosmic works.
Humans are such easy prey.
Everything has a grounded yet otherworldly feel to it that really drives home the unknown horror angle. Or it would if everything wasn't so darn dark and oversaturated.
Ah, boy, here we go.
If you've seen my review for Osamatsu-kun, you know I have some strong feelings when it comes to color and Sega's Mega Drive. Now, look, this isn't me picking on the hardware so much because I see games like Phantasy Star 4, Rise Star, and the Sonic the Hedgehog series, and I know they can get a lot out of this box. But then I see games like Mega Bomberman or Splatterhouse 2, and all I can think is,
Good Lord, you're ugly.
remember that patch that gives Rick his classic mask back? Well, it also gives the entire game a major color makeover, softening the palette and making it more consistent with the original Splatterhouse. Now, this is my preferred way to play, but for the purposes of this review, we'll be playing the original unaltered version.
Fine.
In all honesty, it's still not a bad looking game. It could just look better. And it still manages to pull off some really cool effects and large set pieces. Like its predecessor, the level design is a little bit plain, but the environments and set dressings are where it really shines. Swamplands, misty bridges, and cosmic horror dungeons expand on the original scope and offer more insight into the lore of the insane Dr. West, who also makes an appearance, though they call him Dr. Mueller in the US manual.
What is happening?
I'm very confused.
At its core, Splatterhouse 2 does what Splatterhouse 1 did, by offering the minimal amount of interactivity to technically count as a video game. They wanted to focus on showing you horrific nightmare fuel. But enough about how great everything looks.
Let's see how she handles.
Gameplay-wise, it's Splatterhouse. Rick controls exactly the same way he did in the original. You can move and crouch with the D-pad, B punches and kicks, and C makes Rick jump. That sliding kick is also back and still really hard to do on purpose.
I am so bad at this.
There are also weapons you can pick up, just like in the original.
Deja vu!
The lead pipe is very similar to the 2x4 in Splatterhouse, again giving you that satisfying splat as you splatter
There it is! There it is!
the bad guys against the back wall. The demon bone basically shoots your opponent's head and spine through their anus. And the chainsaw is great for making blood-soaked fetal nightmares wriggle and scream as you cut into them.
Wait, what?
It's also great for popping big zits. You've also got a few single-use weapons, such as the garden shears, chemical beakers, and even throwable zombie heads. The classic shotgun is back too, and just as overpowered as ever. But my favorite weapon in Splatterhouse 2? It's gotta be the Bodor. Just because you can hit home runs with rotting zombies that fly into the background and make a little splash when they hit the water. Again, there isn't much to write home about regarding the interactive aspects of Splatterhouse 2, but the sheer spectacle of these bosses has to be seen to be believed. Bellyache is a bloated creature who makes a grand entrance that is actually somewhat comical, especially when you put old-timey music behind it. He attacks by charging forward and vomiting green acid at Rick. He also keeps with the Splatterhouse tradition of hitting you once you think the battle is over. Big Head is, well, a big head that pukes nasty squished demon hens at you. I'm starting to see a theme here with these bosses. And the Black Crystal, which starts out as a faceted crystal before turning into a giant blue guy in a sea of terrifying flying faces that shoots ball lightning at you. Now, this is where Splatterhouse 2 really embraces the cosmic, though this guy does remind me of a cross between Dr. Manhattan and the Drags from Fantastic Planet, which, if you haven't seen it,
I recommend it.
So, what do I think? Splatterhouse 2 walks down the same worn, blood-soaked trail that the original blazed years earlier. Rick and the mask might look a little different, but they control exactly the same way they did in Splatterhouse, which makes Splatterhouse 2 feel more like additional content to Splatterhouse than a true sequel. Still, as much as Splatterhouse 2 hits the same beats from the original, it is just dripping with personality, among other things. There are so many enemy interactions and fun little touches that blend seamlessly with the cosmic horrors of the West Mansion. No, it's not a perfect game, but it's a perfect follow-up to Splatterhouse. That's why I give Splatterhouse 2 on the Sega Genesis 8 wrong-colored boar worms out of 10.
This isn't over yet. Here comes a new challenger!
Splatterhouse 3 for the Sega Genesis is the kind of game rating systems were invented for.
Yes, Splatterhouse 3. Rick's final journey on the Sega Genesis, developed by Now Production, published by Namco, and released in 1993. The game really completes Rick's arc and finally wins him his happy ending, or a chance to watch his family be brutally murdered by something that looks like spaghetti in a microwave. The story takes place 5 years after the events of Splatterhouse 2. Rick has made a killing in the stock market, so he bought a fancy mansion in the country, married Jennifer, and together they had a son named David. I guess he couldn't find work in the lucrative parapsychology field.
I'm gonna need to draw some petty cash. I should take her out to dinner. We don't want to lose her.
This magnificent feast here represents the last of the petty cash.
Sadly, Rick is better at picking stocks than he is at picking a major or any house for any reason, because it's not long before their home is overrun by terrifying creatures. Now he must rescue his family from...
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
or the Evil One, as he's known in the US release. The Evil One is after the Dark Stone, a powerful artifact that can unleash all the world's black magic, but he needs a child with psychic abilities to do so, which, unbeknownst to Rick and Jennifer, but announced to us, their son David possesses.
Well, that's just great.
To save Jennifer and David, Rick reunites with the Terror Mask and must bludgeon, throw, and splatter.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
His way to his family before time runs out. Speaking of the mask, it gets a complete makeover yet again, and finally looks more like a haunted Mayan artifact than a goalie mask or whatever this thing is. This is also the design that developer Bottle Rocket would go with when they revisited the series 17 years later. Unlike past Splatterhouse games, this entry puts a major emphasis on story, using digitized graphics and cutscenes to depict your family in peril and give the mask some more personality. The biggest change to Splatterhouse 3, however, comes in the form of the overall gameplay. As I mentioned in my reviews of Splatterhouse 1 and 2, gameplay usually takes a backseat to horrifying imagery. Rick punches, kicks, and jumps his way down a fairly linear path on a single axis. Now production implemented an entirely new beat-em-up engine into Splatterhouse 3, which makes the whole experience closer to Streets of Rage or Maximum Carnage, and demands more input from the player.
Input. More input.
Rick can now move into the background and foreground of each room, and has a whole catalog of moves that go beyond punches and kicks to include throws, uppercuts, and a spinning roundhouse kick that you can execute by inputting a fighting game style command. If that wasn't enough, you can collect Eldritch Orbs, or Power Stones as the mask calls them in-game, Build up your power meter, which lets you transform Rick into a hulking mutant with a totally unique moveset, which includes a powerbomb suplex and this wild French baguette attack. Ho ho ho! At first glance, this game seems easier than its predecessors, but I'm telling you, it gets way harder. Beyond the beat-em-up controls, the whole flow of the game is totally different as well, offering a non-linear exploration element that is sort of a hybrid between both flavors of Castlevania. As you clear a room of monsters, you can pull up a map by hitting the start button and plot the fastest course to the boss room. It seems simple enough, but wander aimlessly and you will fail in your quest. Pressure is added to the player with the inclusion of a timer. As time runs down, different time-sensitive events are triggered that will contribute to you getting one of 4 endings. This is one of the 3 elements that make Splatterhouse 3 actually scary. To highlight them, let's review what happens in the last 2 games. In Splatterhouse 1, you try to save your girlfriend and, failing that, have to save yourself and burn down the mansion. In Splatterhouse 2, you learn that Jennifer lived, and you must try to rescue her again, this time succeeding and walking off with her into the sunset. In both games, if you keep trying, you'll eventually win and achieve your goal, no matter how long it takes. In Splatterhouse 3, it's possible to complete the game and still lose everything. Finish stage 1 too slowly and a monster kills Jennifer. Make it in time to save her and you discover she is now host to a parasitic boar worm that's eating her from the inside. Finish stage 2 too slowly and the worm will eat her brain and Jennifer will be transformed into a mindless beast. The urgency of the timer combined with the grainy, uncanny digitized scenes and the creepy music adds actual tension and a sense of dread to the experience that you just don't get in the first 2 games. Splatterhouse 3 is basically an anxiety simulator. You really feel the pressure to clear rooms quickly to save your family and time, which is really frustrating when it takes you 3 seconds to stand up from getting knocked down. Or you encounter something like the Stage 1 boss, who, despite his size and muscles, will run away from you like a shrieking pansy. Some enemies are real hit sponges, and that just adds to the frustration. You can clear rooms faster by using Rick's special moves, like his hurricane kick, but I have the worst time executing it consistently. It's not impossible, like Rick's sliding kick for the first 2 games, but I just can't get it to work every time I need it. Now, my frustrations with the timer aside, as excellent as the setup and cutscenes are, this game does slip in one area where the last 2 excelled, and that is the overall presentation in-game. In the first 2 Splatterhouse games, the sheer spectacle of fighting a room full of flesh-eating boar worms or running from a giant cosmic horror were absolutely mind-blowing for games of their time, and they still hold up today. Splatterhouse 2 definitely took advantage of the Genesis hardware with multiple layers of parallax, different fog, and smoke effects, not to mention cool scenes like the Kraken chasing you down a bridge or unknown horrors tearing Jennifer's soul back down to hell. Sure, the walls of this old house might be boring, but you do have ample opportunity to paint them red with buckets of blood that you spill from the legions of foul creatures in the game's bestiary.
So much blood!
Fat zombies, chicken zombies, hooded ghouls, and these weird flailed dog things that look like something out of John Carpenter's The Thing. Are all out to run down your health and your time. While the brawling mechanics are fairly by the book, you know, beat, knock back, repeat, the way you know you're doing damage isn't. Rather than having a health bar appear when you fight a new enemy like you have in Die Hard Arcade or Final Fight, bad guys become more bloodied the more you bludgeon them, letting you know that you're doing some real damage. Some of them even lose body parts, which opens up new forms of attack. It's a nice departure from just pummeling random waves of henchmen. And they dissolve when you kill them, so there's no mess.
Yes, go away, you bad monster. You'll get more of the same. Self-cleaning mutant. Leaves only the fresh scent of pine.
Beyond fisticuffs, Rick has an arsenal of melee weapons to discover, including the series classic 2x4. Unlike the last two games, however, you take on less of a baseball swing and more of a straightforward swipe, which, I gotta tell you, it just isn't anywhere near as satisfying.
Lame.
Since hit points work differently in this game, you won't splatter anyone against the back wall in 1 or 2 hits the way you used to.
Which was the style at the time?
But you do hit harder than you would with just your hands, so, I mean, that's something, I guess. It can be a little boring to watch Rick batter baddies over and over again, but I do enjoy watching their heads get planted into the ground or pop like a potato in the microwave, and I just can't take it anymore. Weapons fall into one of 2 categories: swiping weapons like the 2x4, baseball bat, and knife, and throwing weapons like the cinder block, which you can pick up again after you chuck it into someone's bread basket. Now, unlike the last 2 games, as long as you don't lose it, you can carry a weapon with you throughout the entire stage and even into the boss arena. You can only lose a weapon if you drop it from throwing it at something, or you get hit and one of these annoying floating heads grabs it before you can pick it back up. Beyond weapons and eldritch orbs, you can also pick up beating hearts for health and books for extra lives. Of course, you're gonna need those lives when you tackle the game's boss fights. Bosses in Splatterhouse 3 aren't the most interesting in the series, but they do have their own charm. Stage 1's Foul Beast is a hulking monster whose face does a great impression of Cleveland falling in his bathtub if you hit him enough.
No, 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 no!
The teddy bear in David's room is one of the few digitized graphics you encounter during gameplay and gets real weird real fast. And the giant boar worm at the end of the second floor is a pain in the ass and I hate it.
That escalated quickly.
Seriously, I could take a boss wiping the floor with me, but the constant running away and knocking me down with this annoying giggle, it gets old. Now, I know what you're thinking. With that glowing endorsement, how can I play Splatterhouse 3?
You dumb bastard.
Beyond finding an original cartridge, which is pretty pricey, you can also find this game as an unlockable bonus on the 2010 reboot of Splatterhouse for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. This isn't the best way to play it, however. The scenes with the woman portraying Jennifer have been redrawn and are kind of a mixed bag. If that bag was full of apple cores and owl pellets. So, what do I think? Splatterhouse 3 really does feel like its own game when you compare it to the first 2. The non-linear flow adds an element of exploration, and the timer creates a real sense of dread. It's also nice to see the franchise adopt a solid beat-em-up engine and try something new with the gameplay, though I prefer the combination of combat and platforming from the first 2 games. The environments are a little bit boring, and the effects throughout the game are minimal, but despite that, this is by far the most cinematic game in the Splatterhouse trilogy. It cleverly uses timed events to add a sense of urgency, changing the story as you play and telling that story with awesome digitized cutscenes to create dread, fear, and suspense, a novel concept for 1993.
It includes deadly new weapons, 6 levels of monster bashing mayhem, and killer special moves.
My only real issue with the timer is that if you lose Jennifer and David, there don't seem to be any other consequences for running out of time. And it goes from suspenseful to boring and aggravating when you're beating on the same monster for 2 minutes with an empty timer. It just feels pointless. Out of the 3 games, this one definitely feels more like a home game than something you'd encounter in the arcade. A solid entry in the series, definitely worth your time, but just not quite as satisfying to play as the first 2. That's why I'm giving Splatterhouse 3 for the Sega Genesis 6.5 mindless beast out of 10.
It's not over until it's over.
Meet Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti. Developed by Now Production, published by Namco T, and released exclusively for the Nintendo Famicom in 1989. Wanpaku Graffiti also marks the first time Namco would hand off development of a Splatterhouse game to an outside studio, but it would not be to last. Now production would go on to develop both Splatterhouse 2 and 3 for the Sega Mega Drive. With its chibi graphics, pop culture references, and light humor throughout, it's easy to write off Wanpaku Graffiti as a scaled-back game to accommodate weaker hardware. Like how Ghostbusters on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 compared to Ghostbusters on the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Wii. However, as you play through the game's 7 stages, you quickly learn that this is in fact a love letter to both Splatterhouse and contemporary horror franchises of the time. Not just this one.
If the crack don't get you, then the hookers will.
The story of Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti starts with a cold open of Jennifer crying at Rick's grave. Presumably he died at some point? I bet he was crushed under an avalanche of 100-yen coins jammed into Japanese Splatterhouse cabinets.
Life is like a hurricane.
With a flash of lightning, Rick is resurrected and wearing the terror masks. Before he can reunite with Jennifer, however, another lightning bolt strikes the neighboring grave, and the dreaded Pumpkin King emerges, kidnapping Jennifer. Now Rick must endure 7 stages of adorable heck to rescue his bespoke girlfriend. Fitting Wanpaku Graffiti into the Splatterhouse continuity is a lot like slotting Spaceballs into Star Wars. I mean, good luck.
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
Clearly, this game is a parody. A chibi-styled Bakage take on the original Splatterhouse formula that takes notes straight out of the Parodius series playbook. Despite its saccharine appearance, Wanpaku Graffiti is still a pretty sophisticated game that deals with mature horror themes and imagery, albeit in a very tongue-in-cheek fashion. The difficulty level has been tampered down with the inclusion of candy, hamburgers, and vending machines that can replenish Rick's health. The health bar itself is interesting for other reasons.
But more about that later.
Presentation-wise, the colorful chibi characters and overall gameplay make this feel more like a PC Engine title than something you'd find on the Famicom or NES. Even with fewer colors, the big cartoony graphics are fluidly animated and look so much more detailed than the little squiggly sprites I often think of when I see most NES games. Just compare Wanpaku Graffiti to Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu, Kato-chan Ken-chan, or even Bonk's Adventure, and you'll see what I mean. Now, these big beautiful sprites do experience some sprite tearing, but that's common in almost any game on the NES or Famicom. The environments are especially charming for a Famicom game, with stages that draw from pop culture influences like Friday the 13th and Evil Dead 2. These sleepy suburban neighborhoods also give me Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street vibes.
Let's see how she handles.
The rudimentary brawler-style controls of the original Splatterhouse have been swapped out for adventure-style hack-and-slash platformer gameplay. Rick puts down his dukes and picks up a hand axe instead. Your attacks are limited to a simple slash that you can perform while running or jumping, which takes away some of the tactical elements of the original. However, the simplified attack mechanics fit the more whimsical nature of this game and allow you to kick back and relax a little bit. Rick is also unable to crouch in Wanpaku Graffiti. I guess they figured he was short enough already, and really, who can stoop that low?
Be more funny!
Unlike other Splatterhouse games that give you an entire arsenal of melee weaponry, Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti is limited to your axe. However, there is a shotgun that appears sparingly and has 10 shots. These blasts are so powerful they actually knock Rick back a few feet and can splatter
He said it! He said it!
An entire screen of enemies in one shot. Now Production is famous for introducing new features to Splatterhouse, and Wanpaku Graffiti is no exception, incorporating an RPG-style health system that's unique to the series. You can level up your health by killing enemies, which ticks a number at the top of the screen. Hit the high number and you receive an additional health bar. This number will grow over time to keep you from becoming too OP.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
Falling in pits forces you to start a segment over, which means your counter will also reset to keep you from cheesing the system. Your vitality bar will also shrink to its original size if you run yourself out of continues, so you have a little incentive to beat this in one go without leveraging the game's password system. You can see lots of influence from the original Splatterhouse and Wanpaku Graffiti's bestiary. The dismembered hands are back, and they're doing more than just pulling themselves around by their fingertips or flipping a bird, opting to throw plates at our hero. Those demonic hounds also make a return, but now their heads pop off when you hit them, creating a new flying threat, just like these guys at the end of Stage 1 in the original Splatterhouse.
I believe I can fly.
There's a host of other cutesy enemy forces, such as the Pumpkin Kids, bats that look suspiciously like Garfield, Mondays, and these zombies who serve as backup dancers in one of the earliest video game references to Michael Jackson's Thriller, and the first of many of the game's boss fights. The bosses in Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti are absolutely charming, and each pays tribute to various pop culture and horror movie icons, such as the Possessed Girl, inspired by The Exorcist, or The Fly, which obviously draws its inspiration from the classic remake of the Vincent Price film, The Fly, starring...
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
But they're lying.
But my favorite boss in Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti is when Rick encounters a young girl lying on a slab in a torture chamber. Suddenly, her chest bursts open, and terrifying spiders leap from the open cavity, attacking Rick in an obvious nod to the film Alien. Don't worry, guys, she walks it off. The music is kind of a mixed bag, but it's not bad. I can hear the influence from Splatterhouse in a lot of it, and it's charming. But some tracks, like Jennifer Has Been Kidnapped, are pretty repetitive and overstay their welcome if you're trying to listen to them by themselves. Now, I know what you're thinking.
But I'm a future man or woman. How can I play Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti?
Well, beyond owning a Famicom or NES with a converter or EverDrive, you can play this hidden gem by picking up the Namco T Collection for your Nintendo Switch, which includes 32 more classic Namco home console releases.
What a deal.
So, what do I think? Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti is a welcome departure from the core Splatterhouse series. Beneath its whimsical veneer, Wanpaku Graffiti boasts some impressively tight platforming mechanics with more responsive controls than either Splatterhouse 1 or 2. There are even multiple endings you can earn by finding hidden areas, a feature we wouldn't see again until Splatterhouse 3. It's got everything you could ever ask for in a childish, carefree parody of a grisly horror franchise that's famous for making you beat your way through legions of gruesome nightmares. That's why I'm giving Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti for the Nintendo Famicom 9 garbage of cesspool out of 10.
Oh boy, mail.
Here comes a new challenger!
It's time for a special Halloween edition of the Retro Nick Mailbag, the part of the show where you get to be heard. Here's what you had to say about my past reviews of every Splatterhouse game I've covered to this point in order. Jay Skeezy exclaimed, "Seen that bent to hell broom handle? I honestly almost choked on my taco salad laughing so hard. Thank you." Dyer51 remarked,
"Thank you for the West Mansion shout-out. I have another interview coming soon with the director of both Splatterhouse 2 and 3.
It's out now. Go read it. Samuel Wetz 8378 proclaims, "Dang old, I'd love to see game bosses run like this, man." And finally, Commodore Vic20 knocks me down a peg saying, "Should have 700,000 subs." Well, okay, maybe 7,000. Right now you have 743.
My pride.
As usual, I want to give a major shout out to my friends over at Retro Game Squad. While their show may be on hiatus, you can still find a link to their active Discord community at RetroGameSquad.com, where the Splatterhouse Challenge is basically over. Congratulations, Ryan Reinbold. You absolutely wiped the floor with the rest of us. While I'm at it, I'd love to plug friends of the show and RNR supporter Ray Ray is Happy. Check out his daily, yes I said daily videos, chock full of fine arts tutorials, inspiration, and daily motivation. Each month starts with a new cycle where you learn a new skill and stoke your fire. Go subscribe to him now on YouTube at RayRayIsHappy1567, or you can follow him on X with the handle at RayRayIsHappy.
It's over. A lot of people in the audience look pissed.
Thank you so much for tuning into Retro Nick Relics. If you like this video, please be sure to slap those like and subscribe buttons, and tune in again to find out what I dig up next. I'm Retro Nick.
And you'd be too if you were me.